You are now in trouble. Sean Payton is going to save my Dallas Cowboys. Happy days are here again. I think.
You said that 2 years ago when you got McCarthy.
I didn't.
He's going to save your
I
day.
didn't say that.
We got rid of 8 and 8 Jason Garrett.
Now we got a real coach.
Oh, now you got a real coach.
I feel like there was like 1 or 2 days where it was really exciting.
Yeah.
Skip, and then, things have shifted since then. And Shannon, what does this tell you about Jerry's chances of actually landing Sean Payton now?
Well, I don't see him coming this year. Obviously, there's an opportunity. There's 3 years left on his contract, Skip, and if they were to let him, it would obviously result in some type of compensation. Now, we know what the compensation was for John Gruden. It was 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and $8 million.
Was it worth it?
It was worth it.
He went and won the Super Bowl. Albeit with a cupboard that was full thanks to Tony Dungy.
Your cupboard is pretty full, but here's the thing, Skip. John Gruden didn't have a Super Bowl winning title on his resume. Sean Payton has that on his resume. So if he went for, that was in what, 2001? 2002. 2002. So what's the compensation now? Are you willing to give that? Now, Jerry, he values draft picks, Skip. If you notice, what did he get last year? Michael Parsons, potential defensive player of the year, obviously, definitely defensive rookie of the year. CeeDee Lamb the year before. So are you willing to part with that type of compensation? Sean Payton will have his pick of jobs, considering if the team is willing to give up compensation. I do not believe Ms. Benson and Mickey Loomis are just going to say, okay, Sean, you don't want to coach this year, go somewhere else, either this year or next year, and everything's going to be cool. I don't believe that's going to be the case. But here's the thing that's the question that I want to ask. How much control is Jerry Jones willing to cede to Sean Payton? I've never heard of a CEO leave a Fortune 500 company to become a VP at another company. Because the one thing that he's had since he's been in New Orleans is autonomy. So now all of a sudden he's going to give that up. No say over the 53, no say in free agency, no say in the draft, and just to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. I don't really know Sean Payton, but I know people that know him absolutely very well. He ain't seen that kind of power. Sean Payton is coming, and he's coming with power because you know why? He know Coach Parcells. And Coach Parcells say the one way that you can really control your future is to have control. So he's going to want some control. Now, Jerry did say this about 3 years ago, Skip. You have no idea the size of the check that I'd be willing to write if you can guarantee me a championship. He would get a guy. Now, Skip, Mike McCarthy has, had a championship also. I believe Sean Payton is a better coach, a better head coach than Mike McCarthy. But, Skip, I know you're counting 2022. I don't see it happening this year. Could it happen down the road? Possibly. But you're going to have to give up a lot of compensation. And you know what I'm going to do? Give me Michael Parsons. I'll let you have him this year.
Oh, okay. For Michael Parsons, that's no big deal. That's just the whole deal. Okay, my turn. Before I launch upon this, allow me to launch upon one LeBron James.
What?
Allegedly a lifelong Cowboy fan. Mike Florio writes in the excerpt from his upcoming book, that's what we're reacting to here, that this was a done deal in January of 2019 ahead of the Mike McCarthy hire, obviously. That it was a done deal that Sean Payton was going to Jerry Jones to be his head coach. And that the only reason it got derailed was that subsequently and coincidentally at the same time, concurrently, all of a sudden, LeBron wanted Anthony Davis out from under the Pelicans, and Clutch Sports featuring Rich Paul decided to navigate all the way through all the red tape and get him out of there to the Lakers. And that the only reason that Sean Payton to Jerry Jones got blown up is because Mickey Loomis, who was then running both teams as the GM, said, I can't have this blood on my hands. I can't lose two of our iconic figures in the city all at once. I can't have Sean going to Dallas and AD going to the Lakers because I can't take the PR beating that would entail, right? Okay, so I sort of get that, but LeBron had to know what was going on behind the scenes, and LeBron signed off on wrecking his Dallas Cowboys. I'm sorry.
That man ain't know nothing about what's going on with the Cowboys. Stop that.
He wrecked the Cowboys. He's allegedly a Cowboy fan. He is now disqualified for the rest of his life. He is banished. He is banned. He can never again claim the Dallas Cowboys. It is over and it is out because he wrecked us. He wrecked our chances just so he could have AD. He could have waited a year. He could have said, I'll just wait a year. I'll wait a year for AD.
What?
For AD to come to L.A. Just wait a year. It's no big deal.
Why would you, Skip? You do realize that man was like in year 17, and he gonna wait a year.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, if you truly love the Cowboys, I would, in the same circumstance,
I don't love the Cowboys more than I love my own team.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. I got to get that off my chest because he is out. He is banished. Okay, now back to the Florio story.
Okay.
I had never heard this. I was shocked by it. I tweeted late last night that I would love to see Sean Payton come to Dallas, but I can never, ever see Sean Payton coming to Dallas for the reasons you just suggested. It especially comes down to control. Is Jerry Jones truly going to cede total control? Because even to Bill Parcells, he didn't cede total control.
Right.
He sort of conceded, you run the football and I'll run the draft, right?
Right.
You can't. You will not be able to buy the groceries here, but you can cook them. I'll let you cook.
Right.
But you can't buy.
I'll let you have control of 53, but I'm going to give you T.O.
Right. I'm going to give you T.O. whether you like it or not.
Exactly.
And if you want to just call him the player and never refer to him by name, that's for you to do.
Okay.
And it finally blew all apart with T.O. as sort of the catalyst of the split between Jerry.
When he hurt his hamstring, it was rising like Lance Armstrong.
Lance Armstrong. Okay, that was the beginning of the end.
Yes.
Okay. So the point was and is, if Florio's correct, and I have no reason to doubt it, but I'm just saying that it's a little sketchy about what were the conditions here.
Right.
Well, to me, the conditions had to be, if this deal is in place, I want you to think through this.
Yes.
If this is agreed upon, if the compensation, which he does not specify, is agreed upon, are you kidding me? It had to include total control.
Yes.
And total control means Sean Payton has final say over the draft because he and Mickey Loomis are like this. They're very close friends.
Yes.
But I know for a fact, because I hear from people inside, the buck stops on Sean's desk. And again, free agency or draft night, it just comes down to they collaborate. But in the end, if it's 50-50.
I got final say.
Yeah, I got final say. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
If I see Taysom Hill out there and I say, is Green Bay trying to hide him? Or what are they doing? I love him.
Right.
Let's go get him.
Right.
Well, that's Sean's call. It's not Mickey Loomis's call.
Right.
So, way to go, Sean.
Right.
So, because he earned total control, because he won a Super Bowl, obviously, after the 2009 season. We get it.
Right.
And he and Drew Brees were the most successful, as far as points scored, coach-player tandem that we've ever seen.
Correct.
Over his time in the league.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Okay, so this just, my heart soars here because apparently this was a done deal. And apparently the compensation was agreed upon. And I have no idea. And I agree. I was right in the middle because I was covering the Raiders at this point. And it was stunning because, to your point, I'm talking about, this is 2002. This is 20 years ago.
Right.
2 firsts, 2 seconds, $8 million.
Right.
Again, the Buccaneers all the way up to Malcolm Glazer and Sons running the organization. It was a beautiful move.
They had to do that, Skip, because they had fired somebody that was beloved in the community in Coach Dungy. So you have to make a splash like that. Now, Skip, remember 2 years earlier, the New England Patriots gave up a first rounder for Coach Belichick, who had signed for a day.
It was basically a first round. There was some other jockeying of other picks, but it was a first round pick.
Right.
It was.
So we have.
Was that a good deal? Sure, it was.
So we have some reference.
We do.
Of what compensation could possibly be.
Okay, so to your point, 20 years later, could the price go up a little bit over 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and $8 million?
Still does 20 years ago.
Or could it be more of a straight cash deal? Because as Jerry, you point out, as he said, you have no idea the check I would write. Well, if this doesn't count against the cap, obviously, what check would he write to Ms. Benson, as you say, Gail Benson? What check could he write that would appease her enough that she'd say, okay, if that, because she likes Sean, they're close, okay, if that's what you really want. Does he want to do TV? He was campaigning openly for a TV gig.
Right.
He was saying that he reads things on the internet. He's a finalist for some TV job, and he calls Don Yee, his agent, and says, do you know anything about this? No, I don't know anything about this.
That's Tom Brady's agent also.
Okay, I got it. He's an agent to a lot of big coach stars. Okay, so, again, he's just like saying, I'm out there. I'm available. Somebody come and get me. Would he like to do that for a year, or is the door slightly being opened for Gerald Wayne Jones Jr., the Dallas Cowboys owner, to jump in with both feet?
With the compensation, Skip, the compensation definitely. If you leave, okay, you have a job and you leave with 3 years left on that deal, Skip, the compensation, look, yes, I'm going to need monetary compensation, but you know the number one compensation in sports is draft capital.
Okay, and what does Jerry always say? We don't play the free agent game.
Exactly.
We build through the draft.
Exactly.
And I must admit,
yes,
as many issues as I have with Jerry Jones, they've been highly successful through the draft,
yes.
And they did it again last year with Micah, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Got CD the year before.
Okay, they got CD. They got Trevon Diggs in the second round.
Right.
Okay, it's like good, great,
right.
good, great.
Right.
And we had the stat there had been over the last decade. They were second in Pro Bowlers drafted to only the Kansas City Chiefs.
Right.
Okay, so Will McClay has a role in that, but Jerry has final say.
Right.
Well, I'm dumbfounded. I'm overjoyed. I'm pleasantly shocked that apparently Jerry conceded total control to Sean in January of 2019 ahead of the Mike McCarthy hire. And I did love one line from Mike Florio, not making fun of the piece, but it made me laugh out loud, was Jerry Jones quietly made his move. Well, when has he quietly ever made any move? But he did. Apparently, it was a stealth move.
Right.
He pulled it off. It sounds like it was completely in place.
Right.
Compensation and control had to be completely agreed upon on hair trigger until the AD situation.
Well, it could have been totally in control because we heard about it. So somebody other than Jerry and Sean Payton had to tell somebody.
To Mike's credit, he got it.
Exactly.
And I give you that. Okay, so my point is, if it got done once, couldn't it get done again?
Of course.
Okay, so I'm sitting here thinking, why not now? Was this the prelude yesterday to reopening that door so that Sean could go back to Gail Benson and say, look, I had a rough run. They had a hard year. And again, this happens to a lot of great coaches.
Right.
See that guy in New England lose a quarterback.
Yeah.
You start losing games.
Yeah, just not any quarterback. Okay. That quarterback.
Okay, that quarterback. And Sean lost that quarterback and tried to get him back to come out of retirement last year. So he starts with Jameis, and they make an opening day statement against Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. They take him. They dismantled the Packers, right? With Jameis at quarterback, and he didn't put up great numbers, but he made some big throws in that game, right? And all of a sudden you say, uh-oh, the Saints are back. They finished 9-8 because they lost Jameis, and then Taysom Hill battered up his hand. I don't know what it was. Travis Simeon. And they go through 4 different quarterbacks. They get COVID racked in the middle of the season, right? Sean was gone. Everybody seemed like they got hit by COVID. But they had some big wins, twice over Tampa. And yet they teeter along, and they get to 9-8. And for a coach who had all those glory years, all that incredible success with Drew Brees, I'm sure it took a lot out of him. Does he need a change of scenery? Is he close enough to Mickey Loomis and Gail Benson that they would finally say, okay, if this is what you really want, let's make a deal with Jerry? Because it's sitting here right now. I'm going to say it again. Mike McCarthy got exposed last year. I don't care what you say. He was actually getting exposed his first year. There is no there. He is a spectator on the sideline. And I think Jerry, whose football knowledge I occasionally severely question. I think even Jerry can see that they start off 6-1 and they falter to 6-5. It was a complete face plant. It was a collapse. And the worst part about it was that they didn't show up for games against Denver and then the Raiders on Thanksgiving and Arizona and then San Francisco in a playoff game. They just didn't show up. They came out flat and uninspired because that's who their coach is. He is flat and uninspired.
They look nervous.
Okay, they looked nervous when he said they were nervous in the team prayer. Really? And then he said, no, only 2 guys. How do you know 2 guys were nervous in the team? He's flailing. He's desperate. He's just reaching for something. He needs monkey butt powder to somehow re-inspire the Cowboys after they fell behind 30-0 against Denver. And they did bounce back against Atlanta. And then you know the rest of the story. He was overmatched. He was in over his head. I don't know why. I got fooled because of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. I give you that.
So you don't believe it's going to happen.
Believe what's going to happen?
Do you believe Sean Payton
I believe there's a high possibility. Again, if you tell me it was a done deal in 2019, why couldn't it be a done deal again now?
Right.
I don't know about the compensation. I agree with you. But again, I'm going back to this report that I do believe in. I believe in the credibility of this book and this excerpt from the book.
Right.
If it happened once, why couldn't it happen again? Again, I don't know Sean's mental state right now. Is he just completely fried? Because sometimes you
that
just
don't look like
fried.
a guy that was completely fried to me.
Okay, well, I don't know. That's hard to gauge from a distance. Do you need, like he said, thanks to Gail for giving me he got 2 weeks off just to get ready for this moment.
Right.
But this moment told us nothing.
I mean, what you mean get to it? You ain't got nothing to do. You're not coaching the Pro Bowl. You don't have anything to do. Skip, there's no free agency. I mean, everybody's just like, it's downtime now, unless you're interviewing for coach. Well, first of all, they're not interviewing for coach because they already had a coach. It's not like the Broncos. It's not like the Jags or Minnesota or Chicago that's looking for coaches. Okay. The Giants, they're looking for coaches. There is no off time. But Sean Payton, what were you going to be doing?
I don't know. And yet, Gail Benson then was talking very positively about, we're going to find the successor. We'll find the next leader of our football team like they're going forward. And Dennis Allen obviously has been a head coach, has been a highly successful.
And he was very good. He was very good.
He was very good. He was very good.
Yeah.
And
the Tampa situation, when Sean Payton wasn't there, he did a great job.
Okay. I got it. So, again, that would seem pretty obvious to me that Pete Carmichael is the offensive coordinator.
Right.
I wouldn't trust that as much as I would Dennis Allen. But the point is, she was like, okay, next. And yet Sean's line was, to tell you the truth right now, I have no idea what's next. What is that about? Okay, that's a little crazy.
Right.
And what did he say after? Remember, they got robbed. What was it? Going back
the Rams,
2 years
2018?
ago. It's the end of the 2018 season. And what was Sean's line about? He spent the next week locked in his house eating ice cream and watching Netflix for a whole week because he just couldn't bear it, you know, like trying to get over it. So he is highly emotional, sometimes over-emotional. And I'll be the first to say, I don't want to oversell this because I oversold Mike McCarthy, to your point. I just got blinded by the Super Bowl ring. He had one. Yeah. Even though it was 11 years ago, he had a Super Bowl ring. I got blinded.
This was even further than that.
Okay, it was. You know what?
In 2009.
It was 2009. I got that. And against the Dallas Cowboys, if you just want to go head-to-head, what's happened, he is 6-4 against Dallas. And I will remind you of some games. Do you remember even in that 2009 season, is maybe before your time watching them closely, but Cowboys went there late in the year when they were unbeaten. They were unbeaten, and DeMarcus Ware just took the game over from Drew Brees, and it was low scoring, but they beat him. Remember, end of 2018 season at Jerry World on that Thursday night? They just shut down Drew Brees. Remember that?
Skip. And, you know, he's had some, he lost at home to Minnesota.
He did.
He lost at home to the Rams, the one you're talking about. They had a lead, and they gave that up to the Minnesota Miracle. Yeah. So he,
Okay, so I'm not saying this is Vince Lombardi meets Bill Walsh meets Bill Belichick. You know, it's not like that.
No.
Okay, but he's very good at what he does because he's got some edge to him. I think players do fear him.
Oh, he's totally different than Mike McCarthy.
Very different. And
he's more Jimmy Johnson, Bill Parcells than Mike McCarthy.
Well, he learned. And here's the other beauty of this. At least he was there under Parcells in Dallas for 3 years. And at least he's chummy with Jerry and Jerry Jr. and Stephen Jones. And there's an anecdote about Jerry and Stephen and Jr. were on the field doing an interview for Dallas local radio interview before the game at New Orleans this year on that Thursday. And Payton photobombs it and comes up and jumps in the middle of them, got his arms around them, and they start telling stories. And he told the story about going into the draft room in his first year in Dallas in 2003 saying, you got to draft this kid Romo. Well, they both went to Eastern Illinois, and so Jerry's kind of disqualifying this new quarterback coach that they just hired because it's like you're being true to your school, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
And he wasn't.
You're doing somebody a favor.
Right. And he's saying, no, you got to take him. He can play in this league. Right. And it was Payton pushing to go sign him as a free agent, and they actually stole him as a free agent for like $15,000. Right. And you know the rest of the story. Correct. They got a starting quarterback out of it, albeit one who drove me out of my mind. But still, that was pretty good. And so they were commiserating. They're close. They're chummy. Yeah. So that surprised me that they're bros, man. I mean, again, Jerry would feel very comfortable on a friendship basis with Sean, which is, as you know, crucial to Jerry to feel like he has an open line of communication to the coach.
Okay, you can have the open line. but I need control.
Okay, well.
That's what I need, Skip, because I need to be able to, first of all, I need the players to know the buck stop with me and not you.
I totally agree. Well, again, I'm harking back to this report. It had to be conceded in 2019 or there's no way Sean would have agreed to this. So he does have some Jimmy in him, and Jimmy did have almost total control, except in the draft room. Jerry would say, it's what he used to tell me for the books that I wrote, I coach the coach in the draft room, in that when push comes to shove, if I think Jimmy's getting a little too full of himself, getting a little too ahead of himself, I'll say, slow down, slow down. Okay, but it still felt like in the end, Jimmy got final say.
Because, Skip, Jimmy, you have to understand, Jimmy was coming from college. These guys that they're drafting are in college. Jimmy recruited a lot of them. He knew who could play in his system.
Well, you knew who he knew could play.
Yeah.
Was this little running back at Florida.
Exactly.
He was a little
running back.
Trying to recruit him. And he starts falling through the draft, and all of a sudden they trade up from, I believe, 21 to 17 to snatch him on the free fall.
Yes.
Because he ran 4.6 at the combine.
Exactly.
4.6.
So that's the thing. My thing is, Skip, look, if he's angling for, he's going to have his choice of TV jobs because coaches of that kind of pedigree don't come available very often.
And he's glib. He's witty. He's a good quote.
I mean, I'm sure we can make room for him over here.
I'm sure we could.
So he'll have his choice of jobs. The only thing, Skip, the compensation and the amount of control that he's going to have, because it's hard for me to see a scenario, somebody that had the autonomy that he had in New Orleans, he goes to Dallas, and he's a Mike McCarthy, he's a Jason Garrett, he's a Dave Campo, a Chan Gailey, a Wade Phillips. That doesn't strike me as Sean Payton. Does that strike you as his personality, that he's going to be okay with his game plan? Ain't nobody calling the plays but Sean Payton.
That's a fact.
Kellen Moore's not calling no plays.
Kellen Moore would be gone.
Okay.
He would have to be gone.
All that stuff where, Jerry, like, well, I would keep him, because normally the head coach comes in, he brings his staff. Well, Kellen's going to stay, and this guy's going to stay.
That was a condition for Mike McCarthy to take the job. Kellen's going to keep calling plays for Dak.
That ain't happening.
Really?
That ain't happening with Sean Payton.
Okay. Would you not be more fearful of my team's ability to succeed if Sean Payton were the head coach?
Yeah, because he going to crack the whip.
He would crack the whip. It would change life in Dallas. So, Jerry, you got to do it. But the first thing you're going to have to do, Mr. Jones, is swallow your pride and say, I made a mistake with Mike McCarthy, right?
So that's going to cost you some cases to do, because I tried to tell you it was a mistake.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.